remembering the lotus feet of our Guru Maharaj, we shall try and say something which will be appropriate. So the title of our talk today is The Unexamined Life. And strangely, which I guess goes to prove there's no such thing as coincidence, that was a statement of Socrates. He said, the unexamined life is not a life worth living. And apparently, I was informed today, whether it's so or not, I'm not sure, but I was informed that today is the day on which Socrates was killed for his beliefs. So there we are. And that's why I sang this song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Amara Jivana. It is from Sharanagati, and it is it's an expression of Bhaktivinoda Thakur about his own feeling about his own life, you can say. So I'll just read the translation. My life is always attached to sinful activity, and there's not even a small part of goodness in it. I have caused others anxiety and given trouble to other souls. For the sake of my own happiness, I have openly performed sinful activity. Devoid of compassion, I am concerned only with my own selfish interests. Always telling lies, I become miserable to see the happiness of others, while the misery of others brings great happiness to me. There are limitless material desires within the core of my heart. I'm full of anger, attached to arrogance, intoxicated by vanity, and always bewildered by enjoying sense objects. Violence and pride are my ornaments. Ruined by laziness and sleep, I resist all pious deeds, yet am very enthusiastic to perform wicked acts. For the sake of worldly fame and reputation, I engage in the practice of deceitfulness. I am always lustful and a victim of my own greed. A vile, wicked man such as this, rejected by saintly persons, is a constant offender, devoid of auspicious works, always in the mentality of separate interest, and wasted away by various kinds of miseries. Now in old age, humbled and destitute, this Bhaktivinoda submits his tale of grief at the feet of the Supreme Lord. So that sounds very negative, doesn't it, all of that? But actually this is our condition. If anyone on reading that doesn't think that there's anything in there which relates to them, then you're probably in the wrong place here, You've probably come to the wrong place. Any honest person will be able to identify with this song to a greater or lesser degree. And our only unhappiness about this song is that it was written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is absolutely none of those things. But he feels that. He's not posturing. He's not just, making some sort of statement, poetic statement or hyperbole or something, that, we're meant to be humble and therefore I should say all these things about myself, is actually real, is actually his real feeling. Devotion is measured in its inverse within a person. Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he said, you can't, the peculiar nature of bhakti is that you cannot detect it in yourself, you can only see it in others. So if someone thinks, oh yes, I'm advancing very nicely in Krishna consciousness, Srila Guru Maharaj would say that means you're very far away from it, to think like that. But the proof of its reality is that we see it in others. We see it in our God brothers and sisters, that they're progressing in so many ways nicely, and we rejoice for that, or we should rejoice for that. Once our dear friend and mentor, Srila Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Maharaj, he asked Guru Maharaj, so Krishnadas Kaviraj in the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's lamenting his own position, and he says, I am lower than the worm in stool. I'm more sinful than Jagai and Madai. And if anyone even says my name, all of their piety will run away from them. So Goswami Maharaj said to Guru Maharaj, so we know that that's his feeling, his expression, but we also know that he's not that none of those things that he said are actually the case. Then Guru Maharaj said, oh, so do you think he's just posturing that? And he said, no, I understand that he actually feels that. Said, then what's your question? And he said, well, my question is that what if you actually are that? Then Guru Maharaj said, oh, such feelings are coming in you. And he said, no, but I actually know that I am that, all those things, such feelings are coming in you, Guru Maharaj said. So, it's not a bad thing. Someone might say, oh, well, this is very negative, all these things, kind of like hating yourself or something like that. But humility doesn't mean hating yourself. Humility means understanding what is your position. And actually, real humility is an outcome of coming in connection with divinity. When you come close to something divine, naturally feelings of humility must come in you. Whatever that may be. Not even divine, something which is awe-inspiring. Like if you go to America and you see the Grand Canyon, when you see that, how vast it is, you feel small just to see that. Or if you go to the Sistine Chapel in Rome and see Michelangelo's paintings, you'll feel small when you see that. You must do. If you have any genuine appreciation of that, or any genuine appreciation of anything which is awe-inspiring, we must feel small in comparison to that. So it is necessary for us. This is, Socrates said, the unexamined life is not a life worth living. So this is the first, you can say, qualification for those who are genuinely seeking spiritual life, is that they must become completely honest about themselves and look within themselves. There's I forget his name now, but a Roman philosopher, famous Roman philosopher whose name I can't remember right now, but he said, the greatest fault is to think that we have none. So, that kind of hubris or, arrogance that we sometimes possess, thinking that we're very qualified and, worthy of all kinds of respect. We see this, that society encourages us to think in this way, especially companies that want to sell you things on the television. You see that in the adverts, because you're worth it, right? Or whatever it may be, right? So you deserve this, you deserve this. Then because you are important, you are significant, and you are the number one. But this is actually materialistic thinking, to think that we have any real importance. It's necessary for us to look at ourselves and examine ourselves. Srila Govinda Maharaj, he would often say, my religion is finding fault with myself. Because if you can't find your own faults, how will you be able to get rid of those faults if you don't see them? And one of our faults is looking at the faults of others. We love that. We love to look at the faults of others. They sell, literature, if you can call it that, just based on that, on finding faults with others. Most of the red top newspapers, that's all they're about, isn't it? What this person did, and what they love to build somebody up and then smash them down when they can find all the dirt on them. And people lap it up. They love it. They're reading all about it all the time, or these gossip magazines, Heat or whatever. That's the only one I can think of. But I'm sure there's lots of them. And you see people on the train, they're engrossed in that. And this is they say, the water cooler subject, standing by the water cooler talking about, what Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie are doing or not doing, and what this one said and what that one said, and vicariously living through these people who've got absolutely nothing to do with us in any way or shape or form, and why we should be concerned about what they're doing or what their opinion is or any of those things. But there's a kind of a rasa there, to look at the faults of others. It makes us feel better about ourselves. Yeah, I knew they were like that, or I knew we would do this, or, it kind of makes us feel better about ourselves. Sad. It's a sad thing. It's a sad trait of the human condition that we like to see others fail, and we find happiness in their failure or their suffering or whatever it may be, if we deem that they brought it upon themselves. We relish it. But it's just like playing into the whole materialistic consciousness. So we should try to be above that. Srila Guru Maharaj said we are not to be drain inspectors. If you just spend all your time looking down the drain, when sooner or later you're going to come up covered with the contents of that drain. And that's what happens. If you concentrate on the faults of others, you can be sure that those faults will come upon you. For sure, definitely. So, as Lord Jesus said, why are you looking at the speck in your brother's eye when you have a whole plank in your own eye? So, look at yourself first. Find your own faults. And really, for all of us, pretty much, we can spend our whole life to do that. But not just that. We should identify what are our faults and try to eliminate those. But first of all, we have to see what they are. So that's called Atmanikepana. It means self-examination. To try to see where we are. Because unless we can honestly assess where we are, we won't be able to move forward. If we're always, living in a falsity, in a self-deception, we'll never be able to make any real or honest progress in life. It means in the spiritual sense. But we're not to become, so self-obsessed with that we end up on antidepressants or something, so we can't face who we are in life. It's not that. It's just a matter of a proper perspective on who you are, an honest perspective on who you are. And if we understand that it's just the human condition, it doesn't make us evil. Thank you. It just makes us human. But obviously, what is unnecessary within us, it is necessary for us to try to eliminate that. In spiritual terms, that's called anartha nibriti. So anartha nibriti is one of the processes, or one of the stages of process in spiritual life. Mahaprabhu, when speaking with Sanatana Goswami, this has been explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. the stages through which we must pass before we can reach real Krishna consciousness. So first is Sukriti. And Sukriti begins with, there's Gyata Sukriti and Agyata Sukriti. Agyata Sukriti is the first stage. That means, Sukriti means like fortune, or a type of spiritual wealth. It's not piety. It's something connected with spirituality. Piety is mundane. Sukriti, it means like fortune, spiritual fortune. So first is Agyata. Agyata means unknown. So, that could be, Agyata Sukriti could be, you're driving your car and the Sankirtan parties wants to cross the road, and you stop your car and let them across the road. You don't know, these mad Hare Krishna people singing in the street, but let's stop, let them cross. Then you'll get some benefit from that. That's Agyata Sukriti. Or one devotee comes on his way to the temple and steals a flower from your garden to offer to Krishna when he comes to the temple. Then you get the benefit because you grew that flower. That's Agyata Sukriti. And maybe other things. Maybe some Vaishnava comes to the hospital where you work as a nurse and you tend to them. You don't know who they are, but because you did something unknowingly, you get Agyata Sukriti. So that starts to add up in your spiritual bank account. Then Agyata Sukriti becomes Gyata Sukriti. Gyata means knowingly you do something. So now something has come in you that you say, I've got so many nice flowers growing in my garden, let me take some to the temple and offer them to Krishna. Then that's Gyata Sukriti. Consciously you want to do something for your spiritual welfare. And when Gyata Sukriti or Sukriti balance comes in your spiritual bank account, then comes Shraddha. Shraddha means faith. So some type of faith develops in you, that you want to go and to see Krishna in the temple, you want to associate with Krishna's devotees. And from that Shraddha comes Sadhu Sangha, when you understand the necessity of associating with those who are on the path of devotion. That means generally we seek out the sadhu, those who are in a higher position than ourselves, but at least it should be satsanga. That means association with like-minded persons who are also trying for the spiritual life. And so then from sadhu sangha, all the time your account is growing. And then after sadhu sangha comes bhajana kriya. And bhajana kriya means when you begin to practice spiritual life seriously. And that means, bhajana kriya means under the direction of a higher Vaishnava. And part of bhajana kriya means diksha, means where you have to accept a spiritual master. It's actually, you can say, obligatory for everybody to accept a spiritual master. Either formally or informally, one must accept a spiritual master if they want to progress in spiritual life. And real bhajana kriya means the path of bhajan, if you like, or the path of worship. That must be under the direction of a Vaishnava, not just, whimsically. Because otherwise it won't have any real benefit. Some benefit, but we're still within the realm of gyata and agyata sukriti, that kind of benefit. But when we begin bhajana kriya, then it's a little more, our account has become a little more mature, some interest is being paid there. When we understand the necessity of following the spiritual path. So, and from after bhajana kriya, then comes anartha nibriti. Now that means elimination of unwanted things, anartha. Anartha means those things which are obstacles to devotion within us. So all of our bad qualities, or all of our acquired misconceptions, acquired prejudices, those things which we identify with ourselves, thinking that they are who we are. This is a common thing for everyone, this misidentification of who we are. That is like the first anartha that we can say, is that when we look in the mirror, we think that's me. And then more than that, we think, that all of that, our mental baggage, that's who we are. We hear that all the time, don't we? Oh, that's just who I am. I can't change who I am. That's just who I am. But it is not true. It's just an artificial, like a coat, if you like, that's covering you, that you identify with. That's all of the ideas and tendencies that have come over you in this life and previous lives. But they're not real, actually. Srila Guru Maharaj says, they're like mushrooms, mental mushrooms. Like if you find where mushrooms are growing, they just grow on the surface of the earth. They don't have any roots. Take a big bucket of water and throw it there, they'll wash away. They don't have any foundation. So similarly, all these anarthas within us, they don't have any real connection with the soul. They're just floating on the surface. So this is where the real process of devotion, or the sadhana, begins. Anartha nibriti means the sadhana stage. And that is when you can say sadhana means like to work on yourself, to get rid of all of those things which are unwanted. And first, they're the gross things, and then they become more and more and more subtle. So that means constant re-examination of yourself. It's not just like, well, yeah, I did that once, and now I know what I'm doing. No, it's like all the time, refining, and looking deeper and deeper and deeper. Because the nature of our devotional tendency is that in the beginning we think we've got it all figured out, and it'll be very easy. We heard from Srila Govinda Maharaj when he came to the lotus feet of his Guru Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj. One of the first things that Guru Maharaj said to him was, if you stay here, you must listen to me and not what your mind tells you. Can you do that? And Govinda Maharaj said, yes, I can do that. And he said, when telling us about this, he said, I was young and thought that would be very easy. But we know that it's not so easy to just act on the words of the sadhu and not on what our mind is telling us. Because, we think, well, the mind's not always giving me bad advice. Sometimes it's giving me some good advice too. And that's true. But what is necessary for us to advance in spiritual life? So shortly after telling that to Srila Guru Maharaj, yes, I can do that, he said, when he was taking prasadam, Guru Maharaj is there, he's taking prasadam, and he said, he was eating the dal, and there was something objectionable he could see floating in the dal. Then he said, okay, yes, and he ate that dal. And afterwards, Guru Maharaj said, when you were taking prasadam, why did you say, okay, yes, before eating the dal? And he said, well, because when I was looking at that dal, I could see there were insects floating on the top of it. And first of all, I thought, I'm not going to eat that. And then I remembered saying, that I have to listen to what you tell me and not what my mind tells me. And I'm thinking, by your grace, this dal has come to me, so I should take it. And so I ate it. And Guru Maharaj was happy with that. Although I think he told the cook not to be careful, not to allow flies in the dal from then on. But so bhajana kriya means when we have to be serious about our spiritual life. By stages, we have to try to eliminate those things which are unwanted. And it's often described like the process of making ghee. I don't know if you've ever made ghee from butter. When I would go to India, I would take ghee to Guru Maharaj, and I would make the ghee like a couple of nights before, and you just put it on in a pan, some blocks of butter, and very slowly you heat it, and it has to be quite a low heat so that the butter doesn't burn. And as it's cooking, you can say, or clarifying, ghee is often called clarified butter. So while you do that, the solids that are in the butter, they rise up to the top, and they're considered unwanted in ghee. The difference between butter and ghee, if you like. So what you have to do you have to attend that. You can't just put it on and go to bed. You have to watch it. So when the solids rise to the top, you have to skim them off and dispose of them until all that's left is the pure butter oil, which is the ghee. So spiritual sadhana bhakti is compared to that. So when we're practicing spiritual life, all of the solids or the impurities, they rise up to the surface. I've heard many, over my time in trying to practice Krishna consciousness, I've heard devotees saying, some of the things that come in my mind, I was never like this before I became a devotee. Some of the thoughts that come in my mind, some of the things that I contemplate, I seem to be worse now than before I took up Krishna consciousness. So, because those impurities, they're rising to the surface. So now you have to deal with them, you have to skim them off and dispose of them. And because if you just stir them back in, they just sink back to the bottom and they'll come back up again. Sooner or later, they'll come back up again. Something that you have to deal with. And some things we bury very deep within our consciousness because we don't like to look at that, we don't like to deal with that. But the process of sadhana bhakti means those things, they must come to the surface and they must be eliminated. It's like in homeopathic medicine, they call that what's it called? The law of... Anyway, I forget the name of the expression of it, but what it means is, in layman's terms, is that it'll get worse before it gets better. So that means that the symptoms will come out. Rather than being suppressed, they actually come out to the surface and then they'll leave. But that's kind of scary. Like my mother, right, she suffered from psoriasis since she was a girl, 11 years old girl, and really bad. And for years and years she used to take like these steroid creams, and finally that made her skin so like paper. It was really, and even the doctors told her, like, you've got to stop using this now. So anyway, a friend of hers introduced her to a local homeopath, and the homeopath treated her. And within the first month of that treatment, her psoriasis got much worse. And so much so that she thought, oh, this isn't working at all. I've got to stop taking this medicine. And but when she went back to the homeopath, they call it the law of cure. That's what it's called. So when she went back, she said, no, this is the law of cure. The symptoms must come out before they can get better. So my mum persevered, and now she's almost completely free of psoriasis, which is a very difficult thing to, once you have it, a very difficult thing to get rid of. So So spiritual life's a bit like that, sadhana bhakti, that the symptoms are going to come to the surface. The symptoms of your disease, they must come to the surface before you're going to get better. And that can be a scary thing, like seeing who you actually are. That, or you can say what you've become. It's like Oscar Wilde's A Picture of Dorian Gray. I don't know if you've ever read that, but that's a great example of, you can say, Dorian Gray, some magical thing happens that an artist paints a picture of him. He's a very handsome young man. They paint a picture of him. And while he's looking at that picture with his friend, there's some, I think it's like an Egyptian cat or something, a statue of an Egyptian cat in the artist's room or something, and he makes a wish to that cat, which is considered like some kind of mystical totem or something, that he will remain as he is now, and everything, all his aging and all of his sins and everything will be transferred to his portrait, to his picture. And it happens, in the story. And what happens, Oscar Wilde's story, that Dorian Gray, he gets older, but he doesn't age. All his friends and associates, they're all becoming old and decrepit, and he's just as he was. The same as that day when that picture was painted. And but he notices that through his life, every little sin or corruption of his soul, if you like, that's how it's portrayed there, he sees that in the painting of himself, like some very subtle change in the painting that more or less only he can perceive. But it keeps going on through the years, and in the story he kills somebody, and he does quite some awful things to maintain his position, and all of that, can say sin, if you like, gets transferred to the picture, until one day the pictures become so ugly that he can't look at it anymore. So he has to cover it with a cloth and hide it away in his attic. He can't look at it anymore, and progressively it becomes more and more hideous. And until finally, at the end of the story, he uncovers it, and there's this monster in the picture, and he has to destroy the picture by stabbing the picture. And anyway, it's very dramatic, and it's a great story. But it's about us, if you like, maybe to lesser or greater degree, but it's about, he has that advantage that he can see how his soul has become corrupted. Of course, we know the soul is never touched by matter, but the soul can be covered by matter and by the things that we do, so that the pure reflection of our own self becomes corrupted. We can't see that. We can only see the ugly monster looking back at us. But the difference is we don't see that because it's all internal. But we shouldn't think that because we can't see it that there's nothing wrong, that everything's fine. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he makes that point. He says, as soon as some symptom comes in our body of illness, we immediately go to the doctor to get some remedy for that, some medicine for that. But because we can't feel or perceive our own soul, we think everything's fine and it doesn't need any attention. But believe me, we all need some attention, to give some attention to our soul. It has become covered by some monstrous reflection of who we actually are. But we don't have the benefit of that Dorian Gray had, that he could see that. Even in his picture, we can't see that, so we think everything's fine. But really, our soul need some attention, need some food. We all know the example. If you're very proud of your car and you spend all your time cleaning it and polishing it and everything, but the driver of the car, if you don't feed him, then the owner of the car, if you don't take any care of that person, your own self, then sooner or later you'll die, although you may have a beautiful car still. So that's how it is. We take care of our body, and we take care of what we can understand of our mind and our mental health and all of these things. But our soul, the health of our soul, we don't bother about that because we're not aware of that. So that's where Krishna consciousness comes to our aid. Mahaprabhu's teachings, the first verse of his Shikastakam, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, that means that the first effect of the chanting of the holy name of Krishna is that it cleanses the mirror of our consciousness. The soul can perceive itself. The soul has that power that it can actually perceive itself. But we can't see that now because it's covered by all these layers of our conditioning from this life and so many other lives before, that it's compared to a mirror covered by thick dust. Can't see anything in it. So the first thing necessary to do is to remove that dust. And that is the first stage of Nama Sankirtan, is that it cleanses the mirror of consciousness. And once the mirror of consciousness has been cleansed, you can actually perceive your own soul. And what does that mean? Guru Maharaj said, your real self is so high and so noble and so wonderful that if once you'll meet your own self, you'll feel ashamed. Oh, that mean idea about who I am, that's who I thought I was, and really I am this. Guru Maharaj says, if you meet your golden self, your real self, you'll feel ashamed that you identified with who you think you are now. What to speak of meeting the soul? What to speak of meeting the super soul? If your own self is so high and so noble and so wonderful, what about him, the Lord of your heart? Then how much more wonderful will he be? So, this is the process of sadhana bhakti and the process of anartha nibritti. So anartha nibritti means the removal of the unwanted things that are covering the mirror of our consciousness. And when anartha nibritti is finished, if you like, then come the higher stages, nishta and ashakti, ruchi, prema, mahabhav, and so on. But Guru Maharaj says from the beginning of bhajana kriya to the end of anartha nibritti, before one reaches nishta. Nishta means firm faith. It means unshakable faith. Now our faith is more or less what is called chanchal. Chanchal means coming and going, Sometimes I'm really enthusiastic about Krishna and Krishna consciousness, and other days I'm like, I'm not even sure if it's real or not, So that's chanchal. And unsteady. But nishta means firm. It can never be moved from that. So Guru Maharaj says, from bhajana kriya through anartha nibritti, all the other stages, they're like one bum bum, and then anartha nibritti up to nishta. It's huge. That's huge, that gap between the two, before we reach nishta. And then Guru Maharaj said, what is nishta? He would say, nishta, nothing. Even then you're not safe. Then they're still. Actually, Guru Maharaj said, until you reach the stage of Sarup Siddhi, there's still possibility of falling back into the material world. And what does Swarup Siddhi mean? Swarup Siddhi means not just realization, but actual manifestation of your spiritual nature in the spiritual world. So like becoming who you actually are in the service of Lord Krishna, in the Leela of Lord Krishna in the spiritual world. That's called Swarup Siddhi. And unless that happens, there's still possibility that you can fall back into the material world. So it's quite a long path, you can say. We shouldn't be impatient. Yeah, I tried chanting Hare Krishna, I did it for a couple of years, it didn't really work for me, I'll try something else now, No, you have to be in it for the long term. That's one of the things, mentioned. And we're reading recently Upadeshamrita, Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita. There he says, one of the 6 qualities of favorable to devotion is patience. That even before we reach the goal, we don't become impatient about that. We're able to, stay in for the long run. Now, this is where, I'm supposed to censor myself, because I'm thinking of one of our godbrothers. I'm going to tell you what happened anyway, and if people are offended, I'm sorry. But one of our godbrothers, he's a sannyasi, and before sannyas, he was a very famous devotee in ISKCON. He was a manager of Prabhupada's temples in Chicago, and very well-known devotee. If you look in the Veda base, Prabhupada's letters, so many letters from Prabhupada to him and him to Prabhupada. And so he told me, a few years ago, he's in Vrindavan and going on. Now he's Maharaj, he's going on Parikram, and some of his godbrothers from ISKCON, they recognized him. And they said, "Oh, Maharaj, we're having a festival at the Krishna Balaram Mandir where, we're inviting all the senior devotees of Prabhupada to come and speak, and would you come and speak?" So he says, "Yeah, I'd be happy to come and say something." So okay, so he went, and when he got there, they kind of took him aside. "Look, Maharaj, our only request is, don't say anything about Sridhar Maharaj. Don't say anything about Govinda Maharaj. It's about Prabhupada. The festival's, yeah, no problem. I'll just speak about Prabhupada." So then Maharaj, he went up to it was his turn to speak, so he went up to and he said, "I thought I'd start off with a joke. Get everyone in a good mood. I'll start off with a joke." And then he said, "So, remember," this is a joke, right? So, "remember when we first came and we thought if we just chant Hare Krishna 16 rounds a day and follow the 4 regulative principles, we'll go back to Godhead in this very lifetime." And that's his joke, right? And he's waiting for them to laugh. But they didn't laugh. They all looked at him like, "Yeah? Well, yeah, that's right. That's right." And then he realized, oh dear, this is the wrong audience. So changed the subject and went on to something else. So that's not, I don't say that to criticize anybody, but it's a kind of naivety to think that you can attain real Krishna consciousness, to live in Goloka Vrindavan with Krishna just after one life, and that just by following a particular process, that's the qualification. That's the what you say, the carrot to reel us in, right? That they put in front of us. That was Prabhupada's preaching was like that, or maybe not him directly, but his devotees, they would say, chant Hare Krishna, stay high forever, wasn't it? And everyone thought, yeah, that sounds good. Let's give that a try, And you do get something like that to begin with. If you really take it seriously, chanting Hare Krishna, you feel good, you feel high, you feel, This is the thing. This is giving some like reinforcement to your sadhana. Yeah, I am feeling high when I chant Hare Krishna. But 40 years later, still trying to do that, the high may not be there anymore. Maybe now you become a little bit more serious about what it means. So, Prabhupada said that many times to his devotees. You just follow these 4 relative principles, chant 16 rounds every day. In this very lifetime, you can go back to. It's not impossible. It's possible, but it's kind of unlikely for most of us. But that doesn't mean that we should abandon it. Then it means we should be ready in for the long term, however long that is. And we're thinking lifetimes, not just one lifetime. We would like that to be the reality, that yet at the end of this life we'll go back to Krishna. But what's the criteria? The criteria to live with Krishna in Krishna Loka is that you have no kind of separate interest from Krishna's interest at all. Not even a speck of any self-interest. Only Krishna's interest. And who will say that they have that? And even if they say that they have that, who's actually truthfully going to be able to say such a thing? That's why we need to be honest with ourselves and examine ourselves and examine our reason for why we practice Krishna consciousness. And then try and eliminate all of the things which aren't actually helpful to us in Krishna consciousness. And that's going to change all the time also. What may be helpful to us today may actually be a hindrance to us tomorrow as we progress in Krishna consciousness. It's got to be. Because our realization can never be finished. It's not we got like the search for Sri Krishna, reality the beautiful. Sign up today, in 6 months' time, there he is. We searched, we found him, there we are. We got Krishna, everything's great now. If only it was so. But it's that's not to discourage anybody. Once we were sitting with Guru Maharaj and he was giving this talk, and maybe like 2 hours Guru Maharaj spoke with us, and what was the tenor of the talk was that what we are aspiring for, it's almost impossible to attain. So he's saying, Shukadev says that he doesn't have it. Lord Shiva says he's still searching after that. Lord Brahma, he says that he doesn't have that. And the Vedas, they're apologizing to Krishna. We are meant to show you to the world, but we couldn't properly do it. Please forgive us. Then all of these, then what we're aspiring to, Guru Maharaj is saying, do you think it's just a joke? Just like his words were, do you think it's a fun? Means like a game? That it's like the most serious thing. That who are these great stalwarts that practice Krishna consciousness and they don't feel that they've attained it? Then and we think we're going to get it very quickly and very easily. What they can't attain, what Brahma and Shiva and they can't get that, but we're going to get that. Yesterday we were in McDonald's and tomorrow we're going to have Krishna Prema. Is it like a realistic thing? I mean, that wasn't what Guru Maharaj said, but the tenor was like that. So after all of that, when he finished his talk, we were all like, wow. We were all thinking, I think everyone there was thinking the same thing. And at least I was thinking like, well, why didn't the ground just open up and swallow me now? Because it's like, what's the point? And everyone was kind of feeling like that, dejected like that. And then Guru Maharaj, we were all kind of silent. And then Goswami Maharaj, again, he had the courage to say what we were all thinking. And he said to Guru Maharaj, then if it's almost impossible, then why are we even bothering to attempt it? And Guru Maharaj started laughing, because he kind of realized that the situation was, the atmosphere was where everyone was feeling really depressed now, And Guru Maharaj started laughing and he said, "Oh, we're not atheists. It's not that we think that if we don't get it in our fist in one lifetime that, it's all been a waste of time." Said, so, virtue is its own reward. The fact that you're trying for it, you'd be satisfied with that. Said, why worry about the goal when the process is so much fun? These are Guru Maharaj's words. So, and really, Krishna consciousness is fun, isn't it? You get to associate with the best people in the world, and really it's the fact. At least from my humble perspective, from all the people that I've ever met in my lifetime, the devotees of Krishna are the best. Even, with all whatever their defects and problems and, things may be individually in that, but they're the best people. I don't want to associate with anybody else except Krishna's devotees. You get to associate with the best people in the world. You get to have the best food in the world. Krishna Prasadam. Seriously, Krishna Prasadam spoils you for anything else. Once you've had Krishna's Prasadam, you can go to the top restaurant or anywhere, I defy anybody, and you'll feel disappointed when you go there. You'll feel disappointed. Because I could have made it better than that. If you can cook a little bit. Or, when I had something similar at the temple, it was so much better than that, And, you hear Hari Katha, which is really wonderful, Everybody's wants to hear about something exciting and wonderful and wondrous and magical. Why is it that all these films are so popular, Lord of the Rings and, the Avengers or Spider-Man or whatever it is? Because everybody wants to see something extraordinary, something that's wonderful, something that takes your breath away. Well, that's what you get when you hear Krishna's Leela. It's the most wonderful thing. And not only is it wonderful, it's sweet. It's so sweet. And that's what it means, Krishna consciousness means to hear about the pastimes of Krishna. And it's not just something that somebody made up in their wild imagination. It's reality. It's reality. And then you get to sing so many nice songs. And, the kirtan of Krishna. People must think we're crazy, right? Every day we're singing the same thing. For years and years, 40 years now, singing the same songs every day, chanting the same mantra every day. People say, they used to say, right, in the 1970s and 80s, that at that time it was Krishna consciousness was considered to be a cult, a dangerous cult by some people, especially in America. And they used to have these deprogrammers that would kidnap you from the temple and put you in a room to deprogram you from being, because you've been converted to this cult, this mind-altering, dangerous cult, right? And one of the things they used to say was that, all this you've just hypnotized yourself by chanting this. You might as well just be chanting Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, as chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But try it. Try it sometime. Try and sit down and chant Coca-Cola and see how long it lasts. You'll have gone completely mad within 10 minutes, I guarantee it. So there must be something, right? 40 years later, you're still chanting that, right? Must be something there, I think, Then and singing the same songs every day and reading the same books and so on. From an outward point of view, that's what mad people do, isn't it? It's mad. But why do so many people do it and get some wonderful feeling from doing that? Because it's not mundane. You can't do that. I met near our other temple where I served then, in the local area. I'm walking one day just to do some shopping, and I met this man who used to come to the temple like regularly. And I said, "Oh," we recognized each other, we had some greeting, and I said, "I thought you moved away. We haven't seen you for so long. How come we haven't seen you?" He goes, "Oh, you just talk about the same thing all the time when I come there, you know. Like if you've got something new we can talk about, I'll come again." So, "Oh, I'm sorry, you know, we're only going to be talking about Krishna in that temple." I said, "Okay, maybe I'll see you sometime, you know." So we can think like, you know, what? 40 years, and we're still talking the same things about Krishna. But Srila Govinda Maharaj, our Gurudev, he used to say, you know, like my whole life, since my childhood, I've been reading Bhagavad Gita. And even now in my last days, I'm finding new light from that. You know, that's the nature of spiritual life, is that it's always increasing. It doesn't become boring. Okay, someone may say, yeah, it's a bit boring sometimes, you know. That was John Lennon said, "Hey, Hare Krishna, I got nothing on you. You just keep me crazy with nothing to do. Preoccupied with your pie in the sky, there ain't no guru who can see through your eyes. I found out." But, you know, that's John's one of those like, yeah, I looked into Hare Krishna for 5 minutes, and it wasn't for me, you know. It's just... But no, you know, you have to be serious about it. You have to be serious. You're not going to get the result in 5 minutes or 5 years or 5 lifetimes. And you've got to be in it for the long term. Once our Guru Maharaj, he was deputized, you can say, to air some difficulty that some of the senior devotees were feeling to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Guru Maharaj was like delegated as their spokesperson. They'd been having some discussion. And he said, "Guru Maharaj, we want to say something to you, but we're a little afraid if we say it, that you'll be displeased or angry with us." Saraswati Thakur said, "No, you say what it is you want to say." And he said, "Well, we're all thinking, you know, that we've been practicing and preaching Krishna consciousness for so long now, but we all have come to the conclusion that substantially we don't feel like we've actually got anything or made any real progress. And this is our feeling. We want to express that to you." Saraswati Thakur said, "Oh, and that's the feeling of all of you?" And they're all like, yes, Maharaj, that's our feeling, you know, and they're all like hang their head in shame. Then Saraswati Thakur said, "Okay, then I'm happy." What? He said, "If you had all come to me and said, 'Oh, we think we're making so much progress in spiritual life, everything's fantastic,' then I would have been worried. But because you've expressed this to me, then I can see that you actually are making progress in Krishna consciousness. And what's the proof of that is that still you're here practicing Krishna consciousness without any less enthusiasm than you were before. So why? Because obviously there is something substantial that's keeping you here. So as I said before, Guru Maharaj explained that you can't detect it in yourself. Real Krishna consciousness, you won't be able to detect that in yourself, but you will be able to see that in others. And that is how we understand it to be true and real. Because we see that others are progressing in spiritual life, that they're advancing in spiritual life. And that's a cause for celebration. And that makes us enthusiastic. When we see that, we think, wow. And I can say, you know, in the years that I've been trying to practice Krishna consciousness, I've seen that in so many devotees who came, how they were when they came and how they are now. And it gives me inspiration. It gives me hope. And maybe there's also some hope for me. That might rub off on me sometime, you know. And the other thing also is that I know, you know, that I'm not a very good example of a devotee. And I know that if somebody is clever enough, they can probably convince me of anything. But, so someone could say, some clever people have convinced you about this Hare Krishna and all of that business. Okay, I can admit that might be possible, but not my Guru Maharaj. My Guru Maharaj is a genius. Even his own guru gave him the title Shastra Nipuna Sridhar Maharaj. That means genius of scripture, Sridhar Maharaj. And I saw so many times pundits and other scholars would come to debate with Guru Maharaj, and none of them could stand in front of him. None of them. And my Guru Maharaj was, not like a whimsical person. And if there was nothing substantial in Krishna consciousness, he wouldn't have practiced it. He was no fool. Like Srila Govinda Maharaj, he also said, this chanting Hare Krishna business, if it was a cheating business, I would have left it a long time ago. So because I may not be able to do any good for you, but at least I won't do anything bad to you. So, whatever we may feel about our own ineptitude for practicing Krishna consciousness, we see that substantially the saints and the sages and, the great devotees and the scriptures, they've all proven it to be a reality. And really, once Guru Maharaj was speaking with some senior devotees from ISKCON, they come to consult with him. And Guru Maharaj said, okay, you're asking me so many questions, but I want to ask you a question now. And he said, I want to hear from each of you, what is Krishna consciousness? And they all tried to say something, One of them, maybe Kirtananda Swami, he said, what Prabhupada taught us, that is Krishna consciousness. Guru Maharaj liked that. Okay, that's good. But what is that? What did he teach you? And they're all kind of fumbling with their answer. And then one of them said, so what is Krishna consciousness, Maharaj? And Guru Maharaj said, Krishna consciousness is reality. And you would be well advised to become acquainted with that. So it's, we talk about Krishna consciousness, the Krishna conception and all of these things. We talk about it as a philosophy, but it is actually reality. And if we can awaken to that reality, then it's no longer a concept, no longer, a theory. We will understand it to be the reality. And it's more real, actually, than everything that we perceive here. Made wood and concrete and stone and flesh and blood and all of those things that we think is reality. Krishna consciousness is more than that. What does Krishna say in the Gita? That the wise have seen that which has no endurance doesn't really exist. And the sages have seen that which has no cessation, that is reality. So, now we're dealing with temporary things all the time, and we believe, wholeheartedly, we believe that they're all real. And that is reality. What we perceive with our eyes and our ears and our senses. We can verify it through our senses, then it's real. But we're not saying that it's unreal, we're just saying that it's just temporary. And that there is a reality that doesn't change, that doesn't diminish, and that doesn't disappear after some time. Everything here is transient. It's here today and it's gone tomorrow. So why do we put so much faith in that? And finally, Srila Guru Maharaj said, the great disease in this world is homemaking. And he said, for that reason our Guru Maharaj built and established temples. So that because we have this disease that we want to make a home for ourselves in the temporary place. It's like when you're visiting a foreign country, you have to stay in some temporary accommodation in a hotel or wherever it may be. You don't start putting up shelves and painting, do you? Because you know it's not permanent. It's just a temporary place where you're staying for now. So, but we're thinking that because we're here in this material world, we have to make some like permanent place for ourselves, some home for ourselves here. But it's actually a kind of madness. It's just like being in the hotel and starting painting and putting up shelves. So Guru Maharaj said to curb that. His Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he established this process of building temples so that we can utilize that tendency that we have to build a home for Krishna. The temple is Krishna's home, and we are all servants in his home. When we come here, we come to serve him in his home. So, and that helps us to realize that this world is temporary. When, a few years ago, I was in the Ukraine at one of our festivals organised by Avadut Maharaj, and he took us all on like a boat cruise with kirtan and everything down the river, and I was like asked to answer some questions for people, guests and that on the boat, and this one woman, she asked me, why doesn't Krishna make everything like right in the world? All the things that are, so much suffering and so many things, going on. Why doesn't he just make it all right? And I said, well, yeah, that's a pretty good question, actually. But the reason he doesn't make it all right is because then you'll start thinking that this is your home, that everything's fine here. I'm happy to stay here. If Krishna thought that all the injustice, all the suffering, everything going on in the world needed to be sorted out, he'd have already done it. But he doesn't, does he? And the reason is so that we won't think that this is our home. That's why we're always encountering difficulties here in this material world, because it's not our home. And purposefully, Krishna puts us in some difficult situation so we don't become complacent and say, oh yeah, I'm happy enough to stay here. No, we have to understand that it's not our home. And Guru Maharaj said, that's home. Home is where everybody cares more about you than you care about yourself. That you're not in want for anything, any necessity. It's all there, provided for you. Whatever you require, whatever you need. Your favorite food, everything is all there at home. A home comfort. Guru Maharaj would say, Krishna consciousness means home comfort. There's a sort of self-help book by this woman Louise Hay, and a sort of new age self-help book. But in that, the title of that book is "All Sickness is Homesickness." And I've not read the book, but just seeing the title, that's true. All sickness is homesickness. We're all suffering from homesickness. This isn't our home, and that's why we suffer, because we're in a foreign land trying to make a home in a temporary place. It'll all be gone tomorrow. And so we become a little crazy trying to make this home for ourselves here. That's our home. And that's why Krishna doesn't make this place perfect, because it's not our home. To remind us of that. This isn't your home. When you go home, everything will be perfect. Everything will be fine. So try and use your time to find your way home. That's actually what Krishna consciousness means, to find your way home. And those who have gone before us, they've left the path for us. They've left a instruction manual. Go this way, you'll see this sign, and then there'll be that. And if we follow in their footsteps, we know we're in the right direction. We might be a long way from home still. We might get, sidelined on the way, diverted to something else. But as long as we can keep our focus on the path, following that path home, sooner or later we'll come home. We'll go home. And that's what Krishna consciousness is all about. But it's not just about our endeavor. It's also, there's something coming from his side too. In Guru Maharaj's words, the Lord's loving search for his lost servants. We're the lost servants of Krishna, you can say, here in this material world. So what's the purpose of the material world? Different people say different things. Oh, we're to learn the lessons of life until, that's the kind of happy, hippie kind of idea about what the world's for. The Hindus, they say, the material world is the Durga, the prison house for those who are wayward, who have come wayward. And we're being punished here or, kept down here to revolve in the samsara till we learn the lesson that we need to learn. Okay, that's all true, that's all good. But Guru Maharaj has given us another idea about why this material world exists. Because everything exists to satisfy Krishna. Then this material world must also exist to satisfy Krishna. How is that? It's not just to keep the criminals away from Krishna, not to spoil his leela by letting them all out into Goloka Vrindavan and causing havoc. It's not just that. That function is there. But what's the necessity of that actually? I saw this horrible TV show about the mass production of chickens. When they're born, these chickens, when they're hatched, they just go down this conveyor belt. And there's some people at the end of the conveyor belt, they can tell if the chicken's male or female. How they can tell, I don't know. They're just like these furry little yellow balls, right? But these people, they're well trained in recognizing male chick, female chick. And at the end of the conveyor belt, all the female chicks, they all go off this way because they're all valuable. They're going to make the eggs and so on. All the male chicks straight into a grinder. Boom, 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 boom. Because they have no value to them as products. So we can say, right, that if they say, okay, the good souls, those who didn't misuse their independence, they all go to Goloka Vrindavan, and they're all serving Krishna eternally. And then the others, that's us, we all come here to the material world. But just as easily, we could have just gone into the grinder, couldn't we? No loss for Krishna, really, Why would he want to keep those who aren't interested in serving him? Put him in the grinder, get rid of them, But he doesn't do that, right? He puts us here in the material world. Why? How does that help to satisfy him? I'll tell you how. Because as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his whole ethos is to save the fallen souls. Then there's got to be somewhere filled with fallen souls for him to rescue, isn't it? So that's why he made the material world, filled it up with fallen souls. So as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with his associates, he comes to the world to rescue those, to enjoy that rasa of saving the fallen souls by giving them Krishna consciousness. And all of us wayward fallen souls, we will have a part to play in that. Because, like the US Marines, they have this the saying, they say, no man left behind. So that's Mahaprabhu's ethos too. No soul to be left behind. He's going to come to rescue everybody. Then when we think about this world in that way, then how happy should we be that he's coming for us too? And, all we can say is, try and get to the front of the queue if you can. Try and, get in there now. Don't prolong it any longer, Come to the front of the queue, accept his mercy, and let him rescue you. Of our own accord, we may be trying to practice Krishna consciousness lifetime after lifetime after lifetime and making slow progress. But once he comes to take you, it's all over. So, and that's what he's all about. That's what Mahaprabhu is all about, rescuing the fallen souls, giving them Krishna prema now. So that's a very wonderful thing. We may think, oh yeah, I'm very sinful, many lifetimes before I get any chance to go back to Godhead, but not if Mahaprabhu Chaitanya Dev has anything to say about it. He wants you now. He wants to take you now. And all you have to do is show a little willingness for that. So, things may be, bleak in this material world, and especially in this Kali Yuga, an ocean of faults, it is told. But simply by the chanting of Krishna's holy names, we can attain to the highest benefit very quickly, because we're not dealing with an impersonal absolute, we're dealing with a person absolute. And that person is more loving and more merciful and more sympathetic to us than we can ever imagine. So it's all good. Everything's good. And if we can be a little bit serious about that, now we've already been recruited to Mahaprabhu's cause. Now let's be serious about it. Let's try and give our energy for that. We're not just here to pay the bills and put some food on the table. It's not just a mortgage and a lawn to mow. It's everything that we want. But there's something else worth living for in life, and we should give some attention to that. Be serious. That's all it means. Be serious about Krishna consciousness. Give some of your attention to your own inner necessity, your spiritual necessity. Don't neglect it. You won't get fulfillment just by doing the 9 to 5. You may pay the bills, you may get a nice house, a nice car, a nice washing machine, a 60-foot television, or whatever it is that people want. But you won't get real inner fulfillment. You'll only get that by Krishna consciousness. And you actively have to take part in it. That's all. And you already got the invitation. You just have to apply yourself. Our godbrother, I know I'm going on a bit, but our godbrother Haricharan Prabhu was one of Guru Maharaj's senior disciples. When he was a young man, he decided in the temple, I'm going to go back out and I'm going to finish my studies and become an MA. He was studying to be an MA when he joined the temple. Govinda Maharaj said, have you discussed with Guru Maharaj? He said, no. He said, okay, let's go and talk to Guru Maharaj. So Haricharan Prabhu says, okay, I want to go back and I want to become MA and all of this. Then, when I speak, people will take more notice, right? Haricharan MA, so, he knows what he's talking about. So then Guru Maharaj said, okay, so why you want to go to that school when you're already in the school? Your classmates are Shukadev, Mahadev, Brahma, Narad, Vyasadeva. These are your classmates. This is the school you're studying in. Why do you want to leave that for something else, for some MA? Then after hearing that, he thought, okay, now I understand. And he didn't leave. So, similarly, we were already accepted, right? We've all been accepted. So, it's like, but that's all it is. It's just, to be accepted by a spiritual master just means that you've been accepted. You've got your letter from Oxford or Cambridge saying we accept you to come and study here. That's a big thing, right? For most people. Wow. Being accepted at Oxford, being accepted at Cambridge, or whatever, right? You might even put that letter in a frame and put it on your wall. And people come, look, this is my acceptance to Oxford University. And what did you study at Oxford? Oh, I didn't go. I didn't go, actually, I just thought that's enough, just that I've been accepted. Like, look at that letter, it's beautiful, huh? So, that's what it means. We come to Krishna consciousness. We got our beads, we got our spiritual name, we got initiation. But initiate means to start, to begin. It's not like, I got it all now. I got my letter of invitation on the wall, but I didn't actually do anything with it. I didn't actually practice any of it. I didn't actually study any of it. That's enough for me, Well, it won't do, will it? When you go for a job and you say, this is my acceptance letter to Cambridge University, fantastic. Then no, I didn't go. So, then once we have that fortune, our acceptance letter, don't leave it at that. Let's try and do something with that now. Let's try and be serious and get the best marks we can, or get the best degree that we can from that. And it's, doesn't require much. Just to serve. Just to have a serving attitude. To try sincerely to please the Lord. That's what Krishna consciousness means. It means that I've realized that this life, this body, this everything, isn't really mine. It belongs to Him. I have to utilize it for Him. Everything is for Him. Then I'm also for Him. If we really believe that, we have to do something to prove that, to show that. I am yours. That's what Krishna consciousness means. And that's what will be the result of the examined life. We have to examine our life. What's it about? What's it for? Who is it for? Where will I find my fulfillment? And the answer is quite simple. It's for Him. It's to satisfy Him, because everything is to satisfy Him. Not the other way around. It's not that He's there to satisfy us. Give me health and wealth and a cottage by the sea. Om Jai Jagadisha Hari. No. What was it that Kennedy said? Don't ask, what can your country do for you, but ask, what can I do for my country? So don't ask, what can Krishna do for me? Ask, what can I do for Krishna? That's Krishna consciousness. Okay. Let's stop here now. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Bhagya Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswata Acharya Brinda Ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Nirmala Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Samadvaita Vaishnava Mandali Ki Jai. Shri Harinama Sankirtan Ki Jai. Anitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.